Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. Today we are starting somewhere a bit different because it is Iron Flame release day. I know everybody knows what day it is. So a little background, I am parked in the back of the Barnes & Noble, like way in the back, like extra parking in the back, because even though the store wasn't crazy, there were a lot of people. Even though the store like wasn't crazy, people weren't attacking each other, which I was semi-expecting. People's driving was insane. They were whipping in and out of the parking lot like crazy. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna film this little intro in the back of the parking lot and hope that no one walks by. But yeah, so this is the start of the Iron Flame vlog. I am so excited. I'm so excited. So yeah, again, more backstory on this. Actually pre-ordered a copy of Iron Flame from Amazon, which there was my first mistake, on September 27th. And my order is one that has been changed to white, which everybody has. However, my order, like in my email, like that they just sent me, and when I check my like order list, it does show non-sprayed edges. So I'm pretty sure I'm getting non-sprayed edges. Even if I'm not, I'll just return it if it is, so I don't have extra copies that other people may want. So instead, I ended up calling Barnes & Noble and reserving a copy with them because I knew I would get a probably better quality one as well, because they quality check their stuff much better than Amazon does. And I did hear bad things about the Amazon warehouses with these sprayed edges in these books. So I am happy to announce that I did get my copy of Iron Flame. Very exciting. It's enormous. It's so big. And I'm interested in this because it looks very similar to what the special edition is supposed to look like. That is coming later today with my unknown copy of Iron Flame. But I'm actually not going to show if that's actually sprayed edges or not, because I have a secret. It's not a secret vlog. I'm filming a month-long vlog in November, reading all the books that I'm getting in November. And so I'm kind of doing, it's almost like a behind the scenes vlog as well. So if you want to see that, that's coming out at the end of November, and I'll have the unboxing for that in that video, not this one. So I thought that'd be really, really fun just to do a huge behind the scenes video. It's been really fun so far. I filmed a little bit here as well and told some funny stories from the store, but this is more of a vlog. This is more, we are reading the book. So I am ready to get home. I'm ready to read Iron Flame and see if it is I give the first one 5 stars, but I am not hopeful for this one at all. I do not think this is gonna be good. I'm very concerned. And yeah, I'm unsure about this one. So I'm gonna go get some breakfast, I think. I'm gonna go get some Chick-fil-A chicken minis because I haven't had some in a very long time. And I'm gonna go home and read Iron Flame and hopefully have a great time. So I will update you when I feel like I need to update you, and there will be a full spoiler section at the end of this video. So I'll clearly mark it when the spoilers start, but it'll be at the very, very end where we can discuss stuff that I liked and didn't like in way more depth. So without further ado, let's start the Iron Flame video. Okay, the light is gonna be a bit funky because I'm just sitting in my little kitchen area, and I feel like I'm just gonna give a brief update because I really can't talk about most of this book without talking about spoilers. And like I said before, this is going to have Fourth Wing spoilers. This is a sequel reading vlog. So I'm definitely going to be talking about Fourth Wing spoilers in here because we are reading Iron Flame. So I do go to work. I have to leave in about an hour, and I think right now is a really good stopping point. Like I said, I just got to part 2, which is like 330 something pages, I think. So I've basically been reading from the moment that I got up this morning. My friend is also listening to it on audiobook right now, so she stayed up all night listening to it, and she's almost done. And she was like, oh my god, I'm on this chapter. Oh my god, this happened. But she didn't tell me anything that happened, but she was like, gasp. Oh my gosh. Oh, the crazy stuff happened in this chapter. I'm just like, ugh. So I ended up waking up at 7:30 and seeing her text at 7:30, and I was not able to go back to sleep. After I saw that, I basically have read up to where she is about. I think I passed where she's at. I don't think she got to part 2 yet. But yeah, because this beginning part is not spoilers, I guess let's just talk about what I feel about the book. I love it. It's so good. It definitely is second book syndrome kind of thing going on, but I feel like Rebecca Yarros did a really good job of giving us enough things to kind of overlook the info dumpiness of this, because it definitely is the first book. Fourth Wing is definitely all about giving you like the main problem that's going on and giving you the main romance. This book, I was like, how are they going to do the romance? Because you're already so invested in the romance, even though there was an issue at the end of Fourth Wing, obviously, because that's the problem with these trilogies. If you introduce the main romance at the very beginning of the book, then you have to keep it interesting for the rest of the series, and there's going to be 5 books. So how are you going to keep the interest in the relationship for all 5 books? And I think that this second book did a really, really good job, because it put in the conflict is annoying, but you understand it. And I think she did a really good job of like separating them. So I know a lot of people are gonna have a problem because Xaden really is not in the first half of this book like as much as he was in the last one. And he's still in it like a decent amount, but he's definitely not in it as much because of certain reasons. But it honestly needed to be done. It needed to be done to keep the interest high and focus still more on Violet and her friendships than just the relationship. So by kind of like separating her and Xaden for this book, you have so much more time to develop stronger relationships and basically building off the first book where she's trying to get to know the other, like, oh man, I don't remember what they're called, like the outcasts, the people who are part of the original like rebellion, wherever the families. So you needed to have her get to know them better as well, because she didn't know them as well by the end of the last book. So that was a lot of this book, was strengthening friendships. It was also seeing the cracks in her and Xaden's relationship and the secrets going on and all that type of stuff. So that was done really well as well. And I just think it's actually significantly better written. I was not expecting that. I really thought that this book was going to be very poorly edited and not make a lot of sense and just kind of be all over the place because it seems rushed. But now I'm thinking that they may have had this second book already edited when Fourth Wing came out, and it was actually, or at least already written. So they basically spent the last however since Fourth Wing came out editing it, because it does not feel rushed. It does not feel rushed. It actually feels very well planned out. I feel like people are going to disagree on this, but I think it feels very well planned out. Again, it has a lot of second book syndrome things where you're learning a lot of information, but again, it's so action-packed that, and like there's so much stuff going on still, that you're learning a lot of what second books do, where they're trying to get you to this main conflict and giving you tons of information, but it's giving you enough of like fun action stuff and relationship stuff that you're not bored. And I'm just so like impressed, because this book is not an absolute smut fest so far. I thought we were gonna go into the second book and it was going to be just all over the place. I thought they were gonna really lean into the romance side of it instead of fantasy. But again, I've been proven wrong, and it is definitely more, like, there's obviously some scenes, but it's not like what the book is about. I love it. I love that. I was really worried about that. And it's also a lot, like, this book is a lot more complicated and in-depth, and I feel like the relationships make a lot of sense, and they're very deep. And I just think it's actually better written than Fourth Wing was. I feel like Fourth Wing was more generally, well, I was gonna say fun. It is a fun book. It's brutal, but it was there more for fun, while this one definitely is like, this is what's going on. These are the hardships going on. The tone of the book is very similar to the tone of the end of Fourth Wing, so it definitely continued with Fourth Wing into this one, but it did have some lighter moments of like the kind of the whole point of the first section of it, the first half of the book, is actually seeing all the first years as second years. So Violet and all her friends are second years, and they got to watch the first years go through what they went through. So I loved that. I thought that was so cool. But yeah, I'm just honestly shockingly impressed. I was shockingly impressed, and there was a very emotionally like written scene right before the end of part 1 that I was like crying during, and I was so shocked about how emotionally impactful it was. I was so impressed with how it was written, and there's just little moments in the book that I feel like weren't in the first book, but like I said, the first book was phenomenal. I loved it. 5 stars for me. But the second book just feels so much more real and serious and just like impactful. So I'm very, very impressed with it, and I am kind of absolutely shocked that it's going as well as it is. But yeah, so that's kind of my initial thoughts with this book. I'm really surprised. I really did not think that I was gonna think this much of it. I pretty much was telling everyone, I'm like, I'm so excited to read it, but I'm terrified because I think it's gonna be not edited because it was rushed. It doesn't feel like that. It does not feel like a rushed book at all. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I do plan to most likely finish it tomorrow because I'll probably read. I need to go shower and I need to finish eating before I go. So I probably won't have any time to read before I leave, but I probably will read when I get home tonight and then all day tomorrow. So I should be finished it tomorrow, and then we can talk about my final thoughts, my rating, and then go into a very lengthy spoiler discussion at the very end, which I'm very excited about. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm excited about this, and it's addicting. It's as addicting as the first one was. So very happy about it. Fingers crossed that it continues to be this good for the rest of the book. And yeah, I will update you when I finish it, or if I get to another part. I don't know if there's just 2 parts or there's more than 2 parts. So I was kind of update when I feel necessary, but it's either after the next part or when I'm finished. So yeah, let's get back to reading. All right. Yeah, there really wasn't another good place to stop. After that part 2, there was a bit of a lull of stuff going on, and then it was just like action-packed stuff happening. So there really was not a good place to stop. Where do I start? We are still in non-spoiler stuff. So I was gonna say part 2 ended with, oh yeah, I'm like, where did part 2 end? What did I talk to up until this point? I'm not gonna say what happens at the end of part 2, obviously. Oh yeah, okay, that's what happened at the end of part 2. That's why it was a pretty good place to pause and move along. I love what happened at the end of part 2. It was so good to like separate those two. Okay, so part 2 picks up at a location, and it definitely is a bit info dumpy information kind of stuff. I did get into a bit of a lull starting into part 2 just because part 1 was really good and really interesting, and we changed setting between part 1 and part 2. But we definitely have some drama between Xaden and Violet. There's just a lot of drama. There's a lot of, I feel like definitely the second half is more on the political intrigue side. We were introduced to kind of the person's not a villain, she's just annoying. We were introduced to kind of a new character that we briefly met in part 1, and I wanted to throw this person off a cliff. If you know, you definitely know who I'm talking about. But she kind of redeemed herself by the end, which I was like, you know the writing is good when you hate a character with every fiber of your being, and within 200 pages, that author is able to make you like them, or at least like deal with them. Because I actually did like the character by the end. That's great writing. That is phenomenal writing, because that is hard to do. This book also felt like a redemption arc for one of the main issues in book 1. I can't even say villain because the character's not actually a villain. The person that everyone hated in the first book, this whole book was a redemption arc for that character. Like, you can tell, like, the author did not want you to hate the character anymore. So I thought that was very interesting, and I'm actually kind of happy about it because my hate for him after the first book kind of died down. So by the time, I more felt bad for him a lot, even though he was a little shit in the first book. You can tell, like, that I feel like that was not the intention to really hate him in the first book. It's just what happens. It's the Tamlin effect. It's the Tamlin effect. So she was like, the author was like, I can't have you hate him that much, so let's not do that. So you're really kind of just neutral, I feel like, by the end of the book on this character, and I feel like that's on purpose. We're not supposed to hate this character. It's just, it's very neutral. I've been brought back to neutral from dislike. And yeah, like I said, pretty much part 2 is just entirely spoilers. I literally cannot talk about a single thing other than what I talked about. But I will say, my friend figured out one of the main plot twists, which I was like, and then I figured out the other main plot twist. So both of us were kind of very impressed with ourselves. Also, but also combined, neither of us were like shocked because the other had figured out the twist. So both of us were like, oh, wow, well, we were right at least. So there was no gasping going on. But if she had not guessed what she guessed, and I had not guessed what I had guessed, yes, gasps abound. Gasps abound. I am a little nervous going into the next book, how I'm going to feel about the final twist, like not the very last page, because the very last chapter, kind of like the last book was I think it was like last book, was in Xaden's point of view. Same thing with this book, the last chapter, it's super short, is in Xaden's point of view. But the last chapter of Violets is like the last chapter, and that's where like the twist is. That was, and I don't know how I feel about it going into the next one. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know what they're gonna do. It has me very nervous. It has me very nervous. It's very different from the twist from the first one. So I'm just like, I don't know. And I don't know where the series is going. I really don't know where it was going. This 100% could have been 2 books. A few things would have been tweaked, and this could have been just a duology, and that would have been it. So I'm kind of sad it wasn't just a duology, tweak the stuff that needed to be tweaked to make it a duology. But at the same time, after I finished this book, I just wanted to crawl back into it. Like, my friend was the same way. She was like, do I reread Fourth Wing and Iron Flame now already? And I was like, I'm gonna wait until we at least get an announcement on the 3rd book, because I have no idea how long it's going to take for the 3rd book, because there's rumors abound that the first 2 books were already like pre-written or potentially were their own duology, and then the publishers got it and were like, let's make it 5 books. But yeah, I'm officially happy that it's not. I was not a fan after I finished Fourth Wing and I found out that it was 5 books, but after finishing Iron Flame, I would have been begging for more books. I'm glad it's going to be to the extent of how long like Throne of Glass was, because I would have been really upset if Throne of Glass was only a couple books. But how many is Throne of Glass? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Throne of Glass is 7 minus, I don't count like the prequel. So I would love if this was 7 books. I would just keep reading them. But anyway, that's kind of all I have to say in this section, because I really can't talk about that much of it. I really cannot. We will be talking about full spoilers right after this. But first, yeah, my rating was a 5. My rating was an easy 5. Now, my friend and I talked about, Marissa and I talked about which one we liked better, because that's going to be a big question this year, because when people do their favorites of the year, both of these books are going to be on this list for a lot of people. So I think Fourth Wing, I do like better, but I think arguably Iron Flame is a better book. So that's where I'm like torn. Fourth Wing, I would put higher than Iron Flame, just because I like the squishy, cute feeling of first romance starting. So for me, like her and Xaden getting together in the first book was like huge for me. And I also loved the trial school setting feeling of the first one. I loved watching her try to figure out how to get through the mats. I liked a simple villain at the beginning in Jack. I liked the friendships forming. There was just so much I liked about the first one. The building of the world to go to Iron Flame. There was just so much I loved about it. Threshing, the gauntlet. I just loved the style of the book. It's exactly what I like. Competition style, but also heavy on the friendships. The romance was really, really good. And so many dragon things. So many dragon things. So I think Fourth Wing wins just because of those factors. Now, Iron Flame is arguably a significantly better book. It was written so well. I am absolutely flabbergasted at how well written this book is, because I thought we were going to come into Iron Flame and it was just going to be trash. I thought it was going to be filled with smut. I thought it was just going to be a hollow plot of an excuse for a romantic fantasy. And this is one of the this is fantasy first. This is a fantasy first series. It is heavy romance, and I think the first one was heading in that direction of being romance first, fantasy second, but it swerved, and this made it fantasy first, romance second. It's still pretty even, but these could be 1,000-page tomes of fantasy books. It's so good. It is so good. My friend made a really good comment about this because she reads tons of romantic fantasy and fantasy romance. I don't remember the difference between the two, but there's apparently a difference. She reads a lot of both, and she also agrees this is actually fantasy first, romance second. And she said the only reason these books aren't 1,000 pages like other fantasy books is because it is marketing to romance readers. And she's like, romance readers don't want to read a 1,000-page fantasy book. Because she's like, I don't know if I would want to read a 1,000-page fantasy book. So I thought that was an interesting point, that it is marketed to romance readers that like fantasy. Like it is marketed that way, but it feels like it's sneaking that fantasy in that is heavier than the romance. So I thought that was kind of funny that she said that. And I say this as I used to read a lot of romance fantasy. Again, I don't remember which one was. When the romance is center was what I used to read mostly a couple years ago. And yeah, I don't want to read a 1,000-page romance. Like no. That is way too long. So I like that she said that. I thought that was a very interesting point. And again, this is not anything against romance. It's just, could you imagine reading a 1,000-page romance book? That's a lot. That's a lot. That sounds like a lot of third act conflicts that we all hate. So yeah, that's kind of my, like, that's why I think Fourth Wing is better, like, feelings wise, but Iron Flame is actually a really, really good book. And the adventure in this, the action scenes are so well written, the political intrigue, the political stuff, everything was planned meticulously. It was so, everything just fit so well. Everything fit so well. Everything was planned so ahead, which is why I'm now concerned going into the next ones, because I don't see where it's going. I don't see where it's going. And I don't know if it was planned past 2 books. So now I'm like, are there going to be plot holes now that start showing up? Or I'm hoping it was always supposed to be 5 books. And that way there are no plot hole issues. It's nothing like that. So I'm very nervous, but I am incredibly happy that this was so good. There was one thing I did not like in this book. And again, we'll go more into it in spoilers. There was a weird thing that happened. I don't know how else to explain it, but there was a weird thing that happened. And I think it was necessary, but I also did not like it at the same time. I think we could have went a different direction with it, but it did not ruin the book. It worked for the plot, and I kind of am just like, whatever on that. And it's going to be more important in the next book, I believe. So yeah, 5 stars. I really, really like this. If you were on the fence about reading Iron Flame, I would read it. I would read it. All it does is expand the world so much and what's going on and the relationships in it. It was really good. It was really, really good. And oh, my favorite scene there, again, there's gonna be Fourth Wing spoilers. So if you don't want any Fourth Wing spoilers, you probably shouldn't have been here. There is a scene with, because we all know the horrible death in Fourth Wing that happened. There is a scene with that character that made me so emotional and sob in this book. My friend also was texting me and she's like, why would they do this to us? It was so emotional and so one of the best written scenes, to be honest, that I may have ever read. I'm being serious. I am being so serious right now when I say that. It was so good and emotionally impactful, and I'm even like tearing up thinking about it right now. And it's gonna be the first thing I talk about because it was such a good scene. So anyway, that is my review for Iron Flame. If you have not read it, click off now. I am going to move into the spoiler section. So spoilers are going to pop up on the screen and we're going to get right into it because yeah, we got a lot to talk about. My biggest problem is that I'm not going to remember everything that happened in it. So we're going to talk about the stuff that I remember and hopefully I don't leave anything out. We're definitely going to be talking about the big things. But first, we're going to be talking about that scene that I literally just talked about. It is the scene where Violet is being tortured by Varish and Liam. She hallucinates Liam and Liam talks to her and it's talking about how he would never leave her. And I'm just like, the emotional impact of that section was phenomenal. It was so brilliant. It felt like you were able to say goodbye to Liam again. And it was like, it's like what we really needed as an ending to Liam's story. That's like what it really felt like. So I kind of hope he's not brought up again, because I feel like that was plenty. I feel like that was plenty, especially with the kind of finalization it felt like in his storyline of when Sloane was pulling Violet out of the cave and she thought she saw Liam's eyes, but it was Sloane's eyes. So I kind of feel like this was a passing of the torch to Liam's sister, Sloane. And I loved how that was done. I'm literally emotional talking about it. Oh my gosh. His death was devastating. His death was absolutely devastating. So I'm glad she did something pretty special in this book for Liam. Okay, get myself together to talk about the rest of it. That's also why I wanted to talk about it first, because it was so emotional that I didn't want to like get halfway through talking about this book and then have to deal with that. Okay, so spoilers. Let's see. We ended the last book, obviously, with Violet getting hurt and being taken to her brother and being mended by Brennan. Turns out Xaden has been a part of this like rebellion or revolution. What is it called? They have like a specific word in this book for it. I don't remember. They have a revolution that they're doing, that they're a part of, and it turns out Brennan was alive the whole time, and he's basically like the leader of it. And it's taking place in Xaden's old family house area thing, because they've rebuilt it and they're hiding in secret, and it's fantastic. Also, very quickly, I am going to say and pronounce names incorrectly. I even tried looking up pronunciations by, oh man, I watched a TikTok girl go over it, because everything is, apparently there's a difference between Gaelic and Gaelic, and apparently these words are Gaelic. I don't know. My family's Scottish and I don't even know this stuff. My grandparents are from Scotland and they never told me this. And so the pronunciations are very unique to the language. And I tried to learn them and I cannot. So I would highly recommend going and finding a Gaelic speaker and listening to their pronunciations of the names in this book. Mostly the dragons and some of the names. I definitely want to say like Tarn. And I know the little dragon's bad. I listened to her say it like 1,000 times and it was not happening. So highly recommend you actually go check out a native speaker of the language that was used in this. Not one of Rebecca Yaros's interviews. She cannot say them either. She cannot say them, and that's not great that she cannot say the names that she used. So do not use what she says as what they actually are supposed to sound like. Go find some, there's plenty of people on TikTok that can say them correctly because I have found them. But yeah, okay, back to it. Violet is mended. She wakes up. She realizes that Xaden's been keeping all these secrets from her. So the first kind of, I would say first half of the book, that's like Xaden and Violet's main conflict, is that Violet can't trust him because he is keeping so much stuff from her. But like, he kind of has to. Like, I'm not mad at him because Dane can read her thoughts just from touching her face, and he does that all the time. So no kidding, he didn't tell her anything. So I don't love that was the main conflict, but there had to be some sort of conflict. It's what I told my friend Marissa before reading this book. I'm like, they have to separate Violet and Xaden somehow, because you need to keep the relationship interesting. You found Endgame in book 1. You have to keep it interesting because this is a 5-book series. If you lose interest in the relationship, and especially when this is so heavy romance, even though it is heavier fantasy in my opinion, the romance is a very central part to this book. So you have to keep the romance interesting. So they did do that. They created this fighting atmosphere, and then they also sent Xaden away to this like really far outpost and added a new villain into the character. This guy, hate him. Fantastic addition to this book. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So we obviously, I got a little confused because she kind of learns everything that's going on, in this outpost, and the cadets and her and Xaden all decide to go back to school, and they use kind of the excuse that they were tricked into this war and that they actually were fighting griffins and not wyvern and venom. So because Violet's mother is there, she kind of sides with them, and they have like the note that's written in Dane's father's handwriting, and Dane's father gets booted out of here to some northern or middle of nowhere outpost, and Dane is not like happy about it, but I would think he would be more upset than he was. He didn't actually seem that upset. He seems more upset that Violet won't talk to him and seems very confused why she's upset with him. So it does seem at this point that Dane doesn't know what his dad knows. He doesn't know about the wyvern and the venom, supposedly. That's kind of like what we're led to believe at this point. So anyway, everyone gets off scot-free. They're fine. But we do meet the new evil guy. The new evil guy, Varish. Oh my gosh, he's terrible. But he works so phenomenally in this book. It literally so phenomenally. He is the Umbridge. Literally, how he acts is how Umbridge would act at a dragon riding school. He is horrible, loves torture, loves doing terrible things to people, and clearly knows something going on with Violet, and specifically targets Violet. The other major drama in this is that our little dragon it's like Enduar Narna, something like that. It's a very interesting pronunciation. It is not how it looks. So I'm just gonna go with the terrible American pronunciation of it, which is wrong. Andarna. She is a big dragon all of a sudden. She's a little big girl. And it turns out she has rapidly accelerated her growth because of her overuse of her powers. We no longer have the stopping in time power, but something is going on with her. She's very tired, and apparently she needs to go into the dreamless sleep where she can fully grow her body, because right now she's in accelerated sleep, not in a safe area, and she keeps waking up. So it's not good. It's not good. You have to sleep during this whole period of time. And apparently in a couple months or weeks, however long it takes, they'll wake up as an adolescent dragon still growing. I know, I'm skipping a little bit around. I'm sorry. I'm so stuck on meeting Varish. But yeah, so they basically, Endarna is in the Vale for most of this book, and Violet is concerned about how she's doing because she's asleep longer than other dragons are. So I did miss her for a lot of this book, but when she actually comes back to the book, she more than makes up for it because her character is so funny. She more than makes up for what she was missing in the rest of the book. So anyway, back at school, met Varish. We are doing first year things. I love it. So Violet and her friends are all second years. Rhiannon becomes, I don't remember if she's squad leader or I think she's squad leader. I don't remember. There's so many leaders in this, but she is some sort of leader, and it's awesome. Rhiannon does a great job, and they become in charge of the parapet this year. So we actually get to see the parapet through different eyes, and we met two new first years that are pretty important to the book. We meet Sloane, who immediately hates Violet because she thinks Violet killed Liam by him sacrificing herself for Violet. And we meet Eric, A-A-R-I-C. Don't know exactly if it's pronounced Eric, but we're going with Eric because that's what I think it is. He is the, what is it? Is it second in line? Second in line to the throne. And he is hiding his identity because I think his name is actually Cam, but he's like, shh, don't tell anybody, and like runs up the parapet. And I was like, what the heck? So Violet knows him, Dane knows him because they both grew up in like higher seated families. So they grew up together and they knew each other. I thought he was going to be a potential love interest for Violet. Not even an issue. Not even a thing that happened throughout this book. I was very interested because I really thought they were going to throw in a wrench into the relationship people-wise. I thought either Dane was going to come back and be a romantic interest or just cause issues, or I thought Eric, who would have been prime suspect because he's a prince, to be a romantic interest, but never an issue. There was never anyone who came along who even remotely sidetracked either one of them, except for Kat. We'll talk about Kat in a little bit. But she didn't ruin their relationship. She was just annoying. She was just a pain in the butt. She never tempted Xaden. Thank Jesus. Again, we'll talk about that when we get to that because that's more of a part 2 thing. Anyway, we go through montages of training. They're trying to keep Sloane alive. I love that they brought back Violet poisoning people. That cracked me up. I love that Violet helped Sloane win by poisoning someone. We did lose Nadine really early on to an assassin. So anyone who was in Arisha, the Xaden's household area thing, seems to be being targeted by assassins, and Violet and the whole group assume it's Dane's father. That was never confirmed. The assassins kind of just disappear throughout the book, and you're kind of like, So that was never 100% confirmed. So I'm very curious if that's going to be a thing that continues into the next book, and we actually find out it was someone totally different who was trying to assassinate them. But as of the current moment, we believe it's Dane's father. All this training montage stuff is happening. In the background, we have Xaden in the other outpost, like I said, and Varish is continuously sabotaging the ability of Violet and Xaden to see each other, which is causing more issues because they can't talk about things that are going on. Violet still doesn't trust him, and Xaden is pining. He is pining, and I love it. I love the pining. We needed some of that pining in here that we had so much of last book. So that's kind of added like the drama in their relationship. And also at the same time, Violet is ignoring everyone's like plea for her to not do anything because she believes that the key to creating new wards with a ward stone is in the archives. And of course, because she was trained to be a scribe, she knows everything about the archives and she's friends with the people in the archives. So she gets a Jacinia to help her figure out what's going on. So she is researching like the entire time. She's also drawing away from her friends because she doesn't like lying to them. That was probably one of the more annoying things that she did. Like, you're fine. just be chill about it. She was so not chill about keeping secrets. It was so bad. Like, it was very obvious she was keeping secrets, and it was driving me nuts. Like, be better at least like keeping your mouth shut and not acting hella suspicious. So that's kind of all the stuff that's going on at training. And then obviously they're learning new stuff, like new navigation stuff. They're working with some infantry people, and that's kind of really what the first half of the book was about. And I'm trying to think, like, I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anything, but that is about the first half of the book and learning about things going on. Oh, we learn that the evil empire, I guess, is killing civilians who find out anything. They're letting civilians die. And we also believe that the Venin and Wyverns are going to be launching a full-scale attack in like less than 6 months. So whoopsies, we need to figure it out pretty fast. So that's what all this is about: research, getting weapons, and etc. And Xaden finally opening up. Xaden finally opens up and tells her everything that's going on. Most of it that's going on. Which causes an issue because Dane wants to know. Dane wants to be friends with her again. He's so confused. So it really does seem like he did not know the extent of what was going on. He seems very guilty that he got Liam killed by telling his dad what was going on. And that, I will say, that section is a little bit odd because I don't know. You think that Dane would know something's like going on, but apparently, supposedly Dane didn't see that much, just that they were meeting somewhere. That's the only thing that part was a bit odd. So to kind of wrap up what's going on in the first half of the book, because I would say it continues very close to the first one, and it's more about relationship drama and kind of building up that research and figuring out exactly what's going on. So to round out the first half of the book, Violet and her friends and Xaden shows up, and they come up with the idea that they're going to steal the journals from the first 6. Apparently 2 of the first 6 kept journals, and they are down in these secret vaults in the archives. They come up with this plan. Jacinia's gonna get them in, and they're gonna steal the journals. One is going to go to Arisha with Xaden, and Violet's going to keep the other one because she speaks like the dead language that's in there, and her brother also speaks it. So they're going to work on them at the same time and see what information they can pull from both. So they successfully pull off the mission, which was hilarious because they had to have Eric. They had to tell Eric everything because Eric's the prince, and it turns out there's a ward at the bottom because it's like the vault is like the king's specialty vault. and Eric's the only one who can cross it because it needs like royal blood. So he pulls Violet across, which is hilarious because Xaden's freaking out. He's like, let me in, let me in. And Eric's like, no, this is like my entertainment. This is the retribution you get because you killed my brother. That's why Xaden and Eric hate each other. Xaden at some point killed Eric's older brother, who was trying to kill Garrick. So kind of evens out. And so that's why Eric just kind of likes torturing Xaden, hates him, not a fan of him. So they find the journals, they get out safely. Xaden takes off with one of the journals, but unfortunately Violet is caught. And surprise, surprise, the mender who has always been healing Violet since she was like a kid, Nolan, turns out that he's kind of bad. Well, I wouldn't even say he's bad, he just feels a certain way. He is very, very much into the evil empire. I think it's Navarre, something like that. I'm just gonna call it the evil empire. Oh, and I totally forgot the big gasp moment of part 1. Jack Barlow's alive. That's the part that I was kind of like, this is unnecessary. This is unnecessary. And he's being weird. He's being so weird. I knew something was up with him. But yeah, Jack's alive and is not trying to actively kill Violet. So that's weird. But anyway, Nolan sees what she's doing, has a scribe bag, you idiots. Like, are you stupid? And they arrest Violet basically in the courtyard after Xaden leaves. And they bring her to a torture chamber. So that was the other thing I didn't really talk about what the second years went through. I don't think it's like that important, but it's like navigation stuff. They go through torture interrogation, etc. They bring her to a torture interrogation room and they beat the shit out of her and she does not give anything up. So they bring Dane in to read her mind, who is like, no, I'm not doing it. Well, he didn't do it originally, but then he decides to do it at the end because he doesn't really have a choice. And he's rule follower Dane. That's the thing that drives everyone nuts about him. He's a rule follower. So Violet, oh, and this is the whole scene where Violet is hallucinating Liam. So sad. It's so sad. When Dane goes to like read her mind, she pushes all of the pertinent information out to him, shows him the wyverns, the venom, the actual fight from last year, what actually happened, Liam dying. Oh my gosh, so smart. It was so smart of her to do that. And then Dane helps her get out, and Violet and Xaden shows up and they kill Varish. And I was like, yes, yes. Because Tarn, this whole time was hunting Varish's dragon to try and kill the dragon, which would kill Varish. Probably not though, because turns out the dragon's still alive later. So apparently, I don't know, they didn't explain that connection because that was weird. The dragon should have also been dead, right? Yeah, because if the rider dies, the dragon dies. Maybe I don't know. So that was a little bit of a plot hole. They never really explained that. But it did seem that Varish was controlling the dragon, so their relationship may not have been as strong, or something else was going on there, like that he magically made the dragon like his dragon. I don't know. So that is a little confusing. I do hope we get some like closure to that. That was never really brought up again. At least not that I saw. If you know why Varish's dragon did not die when Varish did, let me know. So we get out. Turns out, yeah, Xaden comes, Xaden finds her, and it turns out that he dropped wyverns all along the coastline at all the outposts because he's amazing. I love that happened. I was like, oh my gosh. That's literally chaos. That is literally perfection. And he deserted his area, so that was fun as well. I love him. He is my favorite. I was so scared he was gonna die in this, and that's why they were so into the relationship, and then she would have to find somebody else in the next 3 books. But anyway, drops wyverns, takes her out, and they convince Dane to go with them. Dane is all in, and Xaden and Dane convince like almost half of the new cadets and riders to come with them to Arisha. So the end of part 2 is showing up at Arisha at Xaden's household with a ton of riders. So that goes into part 2. So going into part 2, the assembly is obviously not very happy. They're not very happy. They're scared that now Melgren knows where they are, but supposedly they don't. I think they find out that they really kind of do. No, I don't think they ever actually do, because they end up meeting. They set up a meeting somewhere later. So anyway, Xaden and Violet, I think they're basically good at this point on, But we do get some drama because we eventually meet. I'm trying to make sure I don't miss anything here, because this is where I had kind of the lull in things going on. But they basically set up a school for the Dragon Riders. They've got a lot of first, second, and third years there. So they set up a school with new leadership. They kind of try and keep the wings sections intact, and they basically start doing schoolwork again, while also the third years will get pulled to go off to war like they kind of did at Basgath. And that's kind of just what's going on right now. She gets to see Xaden more, obviously, which is fantastic. They've kind of worked out most of their issues. They're being honest with each other, and that's pretty much it. She continues to research. I think they got the book back. Did they get the book back? Yeah, because they have both journals. And they finish with one of the books, and Violet tries to imbue the ward stone the first time, and it doesn't work. So her initial thing is wrong, so that's not great. Then we go, see, I'm getting confused what goes where, but this is the general plot. Then they really need that luminary. They need the luminary so that they can make weapons, and so the only one place that has it is a kingdom that was in talks with Xaden's family to have an alliance. So they go there. He wants to see Violet cast, and this is one of our coolest scenes we get in here. The king of that area will give them the luminary. He wants to see Violet cast, etc. Turns out that Cat is like his, she's third in line to the throne. Turns out it's their like niece, I think, his niece. And it turns out that Xaden had a very serious relationship with her, supposedly. And Cat still wants him bad. Wants him bad. And is horrible. She is a gremlin. She terrorizes Violet the entire trip and says the most disgusting things to her about Xaden. I was ready to throw the book across the room and just stop. I was so ready to be done with it because I hated that edition. I hated it so much. So then we get outside. Violet is going to show her little wielding thing, but they bring out a chest and she's supposed to hit the chest. Turns out there's a venom in the chest, and the venom tries to kill them. Luckily, she comes with a really neat idea and ends up shocking him to death. And that's that. Xaden almost kills the king because it's Xaden. Very upset with him. And they figure out a way to the luminary. They end up getting the luminary. I'm trying to remember what the deal was. The original deal, turns out, was Xaden marrying Cat. And obviously that's never happening. That's never happening. Xaden had shut that one down. So, oh, how did I forget this? They got the luminary because they agreed to take all the Griffin cadets because their school was also shut down. So they have to walk up this parapet-esque kind of thing. It's just basically the side of the mountain because the Griffins can't fly up to the school. So they all have to work together to climb this thing, which is miserable, miserable. And the dragons are kind of keeping watch over them. In the middle of this happening, wyverns show up, and Violet has to go off and basically save everybody by killing the wyverns using the cloud cover. That's really, really cool. So it's easy to kill the wyverns if they're in clouds, and like basically they're like an electrical conduit. So that's kind of, I thought that was going to be a lot more bloody, and I thought we were going to lose somebody because we almost lose Rydok. I don't remember if that's how you say his name. Rydok. We almost lose him, but luckily he's saved by Brennan being there. Thank goodness for Brennan, like seriously. So everyone gets up except for, I think we lose. They didn't really talk about how many we lost, but our perspective, we only lost one rider and a griffin. So that's pretty much all that we know about, but it does cause hatred because all of Luella's friends are Cat and Cat's little posse. So obviously Cat's group is the strongest, so they get absorbed into Violet's group. So they obviously hate each other. It's not going well. There's constant fights, etc. So finally the teachers get sick of it and they have a challenge day. So Cat challenges Violet, and it turns out that Xaden also trained Cat, which Marissa and I were talking about this. That almost felt like more of a betrayal than anything else. That just felt, that hurt. That hurt, finding out that Xaden also trained her. Oh my gosh, it was sad. And then Violet almost kills her, which I wish she had. But do I? Because I like her by the end. That's like what's amazing about this writing, is that I like Cat by the end. But you do find out in this scene, it's a super important scene. It turns out that Cat doesn't actually love him, never did. She just wants the throne. So that made me so much better with this plotline because I thought Cat loved him and that Xaden loved her. And it was like, even though they were betrothed for reasons, they still liked each other. No, they apparently didn't even like each other at all. So they just had a sexual relationship, which is nasty. But yeah, Xaden never loved her. Kat never loved him. She just wants the power. So that made me feel so much better about the situation going on, that it wasn't like a first love type of situation. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Oh, and at this point, and Darna's also awake. Like, she's wreaking havoc and being a teenager, and it's great. It's so funny. And I love that Taryn's best line in this, he constantly has to say it, is "we don't eat our allies." I love that quote. It's so funny. And I love that he makes Violet add it. If you read there's like little things at the beginning of each chapter. At the very end, it says, "we don't eat our allies." And it says, "Taryn spoken to Violet put into Brennan's book." I thought that was so funny. I thought that was so funny. So they're still working on stuff, and they try to figure out why exactly it didn't work. And she has Dane helping her with the book, with the word stone, and they figure out that she had gotten one of the words wrong. So they try it again, and it turns out that it's 6 dragons. Anyway, it turns out it's the breath of 6 dragons. So they get the word stone up, but then right before the venom attack, and it kills 2 wyverns. They're excited it's working, but then is it Serena? I think Serena walks up, or Marin. It might be Marin. One of them walks up, one of the Griffin Riders walks up, shows her that she still has powers that she can use, and so obviously the words aren't working correctly. They go down and check the wyverns. Turns out the wyverns are still alive, that they didn't actually get killed, they just kind of got knocked out. So it turns out that something is very wrong with the wards, and they go back to looking at the other journal. So the other journal, they did not look at as much because they can't read it. So Violet gives it to Jesinia, who's the one who can read it, and she is working for the rest of the book on the translation of that. Oh yeah, and this whole time Violet is training to control her power because Felix gives her this like conduit metal thing, and she can channel her power through that. So that's kind of also going on in the background. Oh, and at this point, Sloane has come around. Sloane originally hated Violet. Now she's like Violet's best friend because Violet was able to give her Liam's letters for her, because Liam wrote like a letter every day for her or something like that, while he couldn't send letters during his first year, and he was going to send them all to her in the second year. Because he didn't get the chance, Violet knew about them, got them, and gave her them. And so now, yeah, so now Sloane knows how much Liam cared for Violet. So yeah, like I was talking about, the passing of the torch kind of thing. Oh yeah, so they go on this new mission, and Darna comes with them because she's tiny, and the Griffins come with them because they're smaller. They're scouting out some sort of cave system thing. It's a challenge between them and another group of riders. And they get into this cave system. Taryn's obviously too big to fit in it. And then we find Varish's dragon. So there's this big fight between the group and Varish's dragon. And Violet ends up saving Kat, and that kind of changes their relationship from this point on. She doesn't try to terrorize her anymore. She still doesn't like her, but they're not terrorizing each other. So I thought that was a really, really important scene. It was very tense. It was very tense. And Sloane, that's when Sloane ends up dragging her out. And that's, again, the passing of the torch between Liam and Sloane. Kat's kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie. Kat's actually like crazy strong and really cool. And they're learning runes this whole time. That's the other thing that's going in the background, is they're all trying to learn Tirish runes because they can imbue stuff with power. Okay, so then we get to the first big spoiler. The first big spoiler. This is the one that Marissa figured out. Marissa figured out early on that Xaden was an Intrinsic. I was shocked. I would have never seen it coming. It definitely got more obvious towards the end. Like, he was being the author was being much more blatant with it towards the spoiler, like where it happens. But she figured it out from like the first, like, I want to say the first 50 pages of this book. She's like, Xaden's an Intrinsic. I was like, what? What? And so we were talking about how it works and why he wouldn't go crazy like some of the other people did. And so we kind of figured out that, yeah, he can control it. Like, he's not just hearing voices just come flying at him. It's more of like intentions. So she figured that out, and I was like, everything makes so much sense now. Everything from the first book, everything from this book makes so much sense now. That was so well planned out. That was so good. It was so good. Because Marissa was suspicious from the beginning because of Xaden bonding to his grandfather's dragon. She immediately was like, something's up with that. So I was so impressed that she figured that out so early. And I literally never would have figured that out. So she figured out that one. That was amazing. So right as she figures this out, turns out that the Venom are about to attack. And oh yeah, they meet up with, is this when we meet up with? At some point we meet up with, oh, this might be, I think this is where they put the wards up. This is where they put the wards up because they're about to get attacked by a huge horde of people. So this is when the wards finally go up, when they're having this discussion. Wards work because it was 6 dragons, okay, etc. See, I told you, I read this last section so fast that it's like, stuff could have happened interchangeably. So at some point after this, they meet with the leaders of Basgiath and Navarre, etc. And they say they need help. Melgren can see stuff coming, and he sees that they're going to attack the big outpost that is now unguarded because the wards shrunk to just Basgiath and the Vale. And so they refuse to help. They refuse to abandon where they're at because they're still having issues, obviously. And Violet's not happy, but then Violet figures out, after looking at the map and what's going on, that they're going to directly attack Basgiath where the major ward stone is. So they get a group together and they fly to Basgiath where the mom is, and they convince her to kind of put up a front, and it turns out, yes, the whole Venom Wyvern army is basically waiting to attack. So when we get to Basgiath, Violet is like, we need to check the wardstone. They're going after the wardstone. So they go downstairs. Yeah, Jack Barlow sacrifices his dragon, which I thought was even evil for him. So Marissa and I were debating about the Venom because of what happens at the end of this book. I'll talk about that at the very end. Jack Barlow sacrifices his own dragon, who's clearly under some sort of something because the eyes are milky instead of being gold, and breaks the wardstone. And so the battle's about to start. The wards are down. And it does not look good. They're so outmatched. It is bad. So Violet comes up with a thing and says, hey, I think we can fix the wardstone. She gets Brennan to mend the wardstone while they protect the area. And we almost lose Sawyer. This battle is intense. Sawyer gets his leg eaten off, but Violet's like, I'm not losing another person. I am not losing another person. Manages to get to Sawyer with like the coolest thing happening ever and brings him down. They're able to mend him. We save Sawyer. Woo! Save Sawyer. So it turns out there's kind of a lull in the battle where they get rid of like the front line of the Wyvern and Venom, and now there's like the majority of them are kind of holding back for a second. And so we go down, we talk to the mom, we talk to people, and it looks like the wardstone is fixed and can hold power. And Violet talks to Jesinia. Jesinia shows up and says, one of them is lying. One of them says 6, one of them says 7, but 7's impossible. There are no 7 types of dragons. And that's when Violet realizes. And Darna was telling the truth the whole time about being in charge of my own den and stuff like that. Yeah, she's a 7th type of dragon, which was hinted at like the whole book. Neither of us got that one. We thought something was weird. I just thought it was like an issue with her not doing the dreamless sleep correctly. No, she's a 7th type of dragon, and it's flippin' awesome. I almost started crying because she chose black scales because she wants to be just like Tyron. He's so cool. And I'm just like, so I have no idea what color her scales actually are. No idea. Tyron doesn't even know. That was what I was shocked at. They were keeping that secret. So yeah, turns out there's 7 types of dragons, and Andarna goes on this whole speech that I like, again, made me cry about how she waited 650 years for her rider and that Violet was it. Violet was her rider. And I was just like, I loved it. I thought Andarna was gonna die at the end of this book. With all these speeches going on, I really thought that she was gonna die at the end of this. So they're able to get the 7 dragons and imbue the wardstone, and the wards go back up, and it saves everyone. But the cost is Violet almost kills herself while doing this because she has to imbue the stone with like the initial power, and she would burn herself out. And so her mom kicks her, which I loved. I love that the mom kicked her to get her to stop, and convinces Sloane, because only some people can channel, convinces Sloane, who is a siphon, to siphon all of the mom's energy into the wardstone. And it was devastating. I was crying. I loved that the mom turned out to be a good mom at the end. Like, she definitely had her problems, and I love that at the very end she was like, I'm gonna get to see your father. And I'm just like sobbing. And then Mira comes running and is so upset. Brennan finally breaks down and is so upset, begging her not to do it. Violet's obviously begging her not to do it while Eric's holding her back. It was just so much. It was so much. So anyway, fixed the ward stone, lost the mom, and Taryn is being oddly weird. And says you need to come see Xaden, because there was something weird that happened in Skyle, Xaden's dragon. She let out a heartbreaking roar in the middle of Violet doing her thing, so we know something happened, but we don't know what happened. So Violet finally goes out. Xaden looks okay, but he won't look at her. He looks very upset. His dragon not happy, but still protecting him, and Taryn's kind of staying away from the situation. Yeah, it turns out Xaden, to save Violet, because the venom was gonna kill him and then go for Violet, he absorbed like venom powers, and now he's becoming a venom. And I was like, called it. I called that one. I did not know who it was going to be, but I felt like there was a weird situation of how we didn't exactly know how they were made, but introducing Jack Barlow as a venom, becoming venom, I was like, one of our characters is gonna become one. I didn't think it was gonna be Violet. I kind of was between Xaden becoming Venom and potentially her brother. I thought, or Mira. I thought somebody close to them was going to become Venom, and that's like kind of the drama that they'd have to deal with. So I was right about that one. I was a little surprised it was him, just because I don't love that. I don't love that, but that does add the drama for the next books, because they're going to have to be finding a cure. They have to figure out exactly what's going on, because they don't know exactly what the transformation is. And they still have Jack. So the last, I almost said episode, the last chapter is Xaden talking to Jack, and Jack saying, welcome to the family. I guess we're brothers now. And I'm just like, ugh. So the argument, or not the argument, but Marissa and I had a whole discussion about Venom at the end of this, because we're like, okay, so what does it actually mean to become Venom? So Jack obviously kept his personality, but he already sucked. So we don't know if Venom are just people who were power hungry and already shitty, and they took this power for themselves, so they just continued to be shitty, because that's what Jack was. He was a horrible person already. Because Xaden has the red rings, but he's still acting like himself. He can feel stuff and feel power and feels like the desire for it, but he's still himself. So we're curious if it's going to get progressively worse and is going to become an evil person, or if you can live as a Venom as yourself and you just have to kind of ignore some of the impulses that the others didn't. So that's what we're kind of curious, and what's like, what direction is Rebecca Yarros going to take with that in the next book? Because does that mean there's then good Venom living somewhere? Is something going on with the Venom we don't like understand? I don't think they'll be good, because that was something we also talked about. Marissa was like, she was like, I'm entertaining the idea that maybe somehow the Venom are in the right. And I'm like, there's no way. We already did that with the Tirish Rebellion. Like, we already were like, these guys are bad. Oh yeah, it actually turns out they were in the right. So we're not going to do that twice. And the Venom do seem legitimately very evil. Like, they are killing everybody. So I don't think that's going to be a problem, but I am curious if people have been successfully turned to Venom without side effects happening. So I am curious if we're going to go for more the he has to be cured immediately route, or the it'll be okay and he's going to just have to live with it route. Don't know. I kind of hope we go the cure route, just because I don't want him to stay Venom forever. I like Xaden as Xaden. So, and we don't know like if he's going to still be able to wield all his powers. We just don't know. But yeah, that is the spoiler section of the book. I know it's super long. This is a really long book. It was over 600 pages. I loved it. I thought it was so good. The Jack Barlow thing, I was not a fan of. I get why, but I did not like that. And even though I don't love Xaden being turned into a Venom, it's the drama. It is the drama. The cliffhanger of all cliffhangers was so good, and I just want to get my hands on the next book. So don't love that just because something bad could happen to him. That stresses me out. But at the same time, it's so good. It's so good. So yeah, that is all the spoilers. Basically liked everything in here. I think Varys was a fantastic villain. So good. Even though I hated him, fantastic addition to the book, added so much to the book as a really good side villain, because you can't just have, because the Venom are like the main villains, but you can't just have them walking in and like terrorizing people. I have like a eyelash right here. So you need kind of like minor villains. So Varish was definitely that first villain, and then you had more of an annoyance villain in Kat early on, who definitely changed by the end of it, which I really liked, because she's so cool. She's so cool. I hate that I like her, but she's so cool. As long as she's not trying to come between Violet and Xaden, I'm good. My friend joked, Marissa was like, well, it's not gonna be an issue now because Kat's not gonna want to be married to a Venom who would never have the throne. And I was like, good point. Good point. That kind of removed Kat from the equation completely. I also love that we ended with Xaden's point of view and Violet and Xaden sleeping next to each other in the bed. I love that because I was worried it was just going to be like that, and then the next book opens up with her like not talking to him and him being in exile, which is clearly not the case. So I do like that we ended with that. That kind of gave me like a little bit of, oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness that is not an issue. I think that's it. I'm trying to think of any more wrap-ups. And Darna, I love her whole plot line in this. She is amazing. I'm really curious to figure out exactly what's going on with her, but she's really good at hiding. I loved that. I love that she was like, I'm really good at hiding, and like pretended to be a boulder. So she's obviously like camouflage is like her power. So I'm curious what Violet is going to have as a second signet, because we haven't talked about that. So yeah, I'm excited. There's a lot of directions this could go in the third one, so I have no idea the direction, although the Sage is still alive, so that is still a major problem. There's still Venom. So yeah, I don't know. There's a lot where this could go. So yeah, that's everything I have for you today. I hope you also enjoyed Iron Flame. I loved it. It was so good. I absolutely love this. But yeah, so yeah, make sure you subscribe because I have plenty more book content, lots of things coming out. I have a lot of stuff planned for the end of the year. I'm reading a ton of stuff, which is very exciting. And make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it. Make sure you comment down below. Let me know what you thought about Iron Flame versus Fourth Wing. Yeah, whatever. If you hated it, you hated it. That's the thing. Like, everyone's book opinions are different. I know plenty of people who really hated Fourth Wing, but yeah, I'm really curious, people who did not like Fourth Wing but decided to read Iron Flame, did you like Iron Flame? Like that, I'm very curious about this because it feels like a very different book than Fourth Wing. So I'm curious kind of what people thought about it. I feel like, I wonder if romance readers are going to be disappointed in this because this is heavier on the fantasy and less on the romance. It's still there constantly, but this was heavier on the intrigue, politics, war, fantasy stuff. So I'm very curious about what people are going to think about this book, but I loved it. I had a great time. Hope you had a good time watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.